And then we started a series, it's been 3 or 4 weeks now, all about kind of how to survive the digital world, right? And really look at how we interact with our phones, how we interact with technology, and kind of that whole side of life. And so if you're just jumping in with us, we've kind of laid some groundwork. In fact, I'd encourage you to maybe go back and catch up if you want to. And we've been looking over the last several weeks at how does this device and kind of our interaction with technology affect us? Right? How does it impact me? How do I use it? How do I make sure this thing is a tool in my life and not a master in my life? Those have been some of the questions that we've been looking at, trying to answer those and trying to kind of dive into a big conversation around that. And so what we've said so far, just a couple things if you're just jumping in with us, that may be helpful as reminders for those of you who have been. We've been saying, that, this thing, we call it a phone, but it's a lot more than that. The reality is that within this thing, it's a bank, it's a casino, it's an arcade, it's a strip club, it's a library, it's like all the information in the world. I mean, it's basically a college degree in here. I mean, you name it, you can kind of have access to all kinds of stuff, all within this device. And there's not really a rule book on how, or even a best practices, right, on how you should interact with this. So it's like unlimited information, unlimited access to all kinds of stuff, and we're not totally sure, right, as kind of society, how do we use this in a way that's helpful? And what are the realities that might come into my life if I use this in a specific way? So that week one, we said, hey, this thing is fun, it's fun to use, it's powerful, and it's dangerous, right? That is a reality, and I brought a chainsaw and said, just like this chainsaw, that's the reality of how it is. So hear me, right, and especially if you're jumping in with us today, we're not saying technology is the devil and that you should never use it, right? So if that's your takeaway, you're not hearing the whole conversation if you've been around. We are saying there are some dangers, and we want to be aware, right? We want to be aware of how this is impacting us and make sure that we're using it in a way that we're proud of. So today what we're going to do is specifically we want to have a conversation around how does my heart impact my use of a device like this, or the use maybe of anything that I might consume, all right? And then how does what I consume affect my heart? What's that relationship like, right? And kind of the two places that we're going to have that show up is kind of what I bring to the phone, right? What I might search or choose to look at, right, my initiative on how I approach it, and then what we're going to talk about is how does what I see or what I consume come back into my life and affect the way that I think and the way that I live. So that's kind of where we're headed. I think you'll be able to walk away today with a sense of maybe an assessment to say, wait a minute, am I interacting with this, and is my heart positioned the way that I hope that it is, right? So that's what we're going to jump into. Jesus said some really profound things when he was here on the planet. Here's one of the things he said in Luke chapter 6, in verses 43 through 45. He said, "No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People don't pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. It says a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. It says, for the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." And what Jesus is doing here is helping us see that, right, what's coming out of my mouth, specifically, he's kind of addressing that piece, is coming from within my heart. And my heart is going to be a source, and my heart is going to be a storehouse, the Bible is going to say. And it's out of that storehouse of good or evil that I'm holding on to, right, that I'm going to make decisions on how I speak. We could apply it more broadly and say make decisions on kind of what I do in life. That's going to come out of my heart. In fact, that's why the Bible is going to say things like this, right, that above all else, guard your heart because, right, it's the wellspring of life, right? All the stuff that we do is actually coming out of our hearts. So I think we can apply that pretty easily in our interaction with our phones, right, or technology in a broader way, right? And we can say this, right, that our hearts direct our interaction with technology. Our hearts direct our interaction with technology. So here's kind of maybe how we would think of it, right? We might look and say, okay, my heart is going to be what drives me, my curiosity, my interest, right? It's going to be out of my heart that I'm going to choose what I'm going to search, right? What notifications I'm going to get, right? Whatever I'm kind of aiming at, that's going to drive how I interact with this thing. It's from within me. It doesn't on its own necessarily tell me how do I interact back with it. So it's from my heart that I'm going to do that. Now, we could say there are things for sure that I might look at and say, I could search, and that search could look very, very differently. That looks like a giant apple, some form of fruit, right? That I might look and say that this thing, I could search and go down the road of evil and say, you know what, I'm drawn into, we might not call it evil, but I might be drawn towards things that are maybe not so healthy or good for me, and then I'm going to consume those things, and those things are actually, this is an important part of it, those things are going to feed back into my heart, and they're going to strengthen my desire to have more of that, and that's going to create a cycle, and that creates a problem in my life. Let me flip it and say that the opposite is also true, that I might pursue something good and have an interest in pursuing knowing Jesus or learning more about the Bible or having a healthier relationship or becoming a better, whatever, right? And I might go find information that way, learn and grow and apply that, and that feeds into my heart, and then I'm going to go search that some more, and that's going to strengthen in that direction. Here's why this is such a big deal. What I just described has always been true before we had a phone, right? Whatever I take in, I'm choosing to take that in, and then that's going to affect my heart. We used to apply this, we would have had this conversation 20 or 30 years ago. We would have said, hey, pay attention to the music choices that you listen to, or the kind of movies maybe that you watch, because you're taking some stuff into your heart, right? And when that song gets in your head, it's going to actually affect your thinking, and it's going to affect the state of your heart, and it makes an impact on you. You don't notice it at first, but all of a sudden, that's now what's on your mind. This thing takes that whole process we just described, and it magnifies it, okay? It magnifies it. It makes it faster, and it makes it bigger. Because here's the thing. Before, if you wanted to go get content or go choose something good or bad, often you had to go out of your way to go get it. You had to go to the library or go to the bookstore. Remember when there's a bookstore, right? You might go find that information somewhere else. If you want to get in trouble, you had to go get yourself in trouble and go find it. Now it's all right here, and it strengthens as you interact with it, right? The more you go down that road, the more the algorithm's going to feed you exactly what you're looking for. So Pastor Aaron used a great phrase last week that my use of the phone magnifies my heart. This is why we want to be aware and have some intentionality and understand what is it I'm actually doing when I interact with my phone, when I use it, the notifications that I get, because all of that is strengthening some stuff here. And of course, there's a big part of my interacting with the phone that's really doesn't feel necessarily good or evil. It feels kind of neutral-ish. We're going to talk more about some of that next week. But I want us to be aware of some of how that works and how that interacts in our lives, right? The writer of Psalms says some really important things here when we get our head around how this shows up with our attention. I love this verse in Psalm 119. The psalmist says, "Turn my eyes away from worthless things." Turn my eyes away from, it's a prayer, turn my eyes away from worthless things. Preserve my life according to your word. So here the psalmist is saying, God, would you help me to not put my attention on this idea of something that is worthless, something that is empty, something that is void of substance is what this word means. And, right? And some of those things are going to be evil, some of those things are just like, they're kind of meaningless, right? They're kind of worthless. They don't have any value. Turn my eyes away from that. And then what he says is, preserve my life according to your word. And that idea of life is more than just my physical life. It's this life that, right, my life with God, the reason that I'm created, the reason that I'm on the planet, the purpose that I was designed for. God, preserve my life. Help me to stay locked into where you've actually placed me here for a purpose and a reason. Help me to embrace that and to move towards it, not to get sucked up into worthless or harmful or evil things that spin me off into an oblivion. Right? It's the prayer of the psalmist here. Here's another example from Proverbs. I love this wisdom literature. This is all in the Bible, right? Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet. Don't turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. Right? The writer of the Proverbs is leaning into this. He's saying you have to pay attention to where your attention is going. Pay attention to where your gaze is. Be aware of where your eyes are going, because where your eyes are going, your feet are going to go. Right? And he's going to say, don't turn to the right or the left. Go into the direction that God is calling you. So here's a thing we want to make sure we pay attention to. If this is true, right, that I'm in charge kind of where my attention is, if this accelerates good in my life or it can accelerate evil in my life, that's a big deal that I want to pay attention to, and it's going to maybe cause me to be more awake and aware to how I interact with this tool. Here's a few things maybe that I want to make sure we have our eyes open to. Again, this is not evil. This is not the devil. Can this tool help me in my spiritual growth? Absolutely it can. Absolutely it can. In fact, there's a young man who's on our team who came to know Jesus because he was scrolling through social media and he heard the gospel. Praise God. Love that. Right? A ton of people I could tell you who have grown like crazy because they had access to great teaching about the Bible, or they began to listen or read the Bible for the first time because it was available right here in front of them, right? Can I grow? Absolutely. Can this be a tool for idolatry? Absolutely. Can this spin me off into an addiction? Can it spin me off into caring about things that I don't want to care that much about, and now my attention is over in no man's land? Absolutely. Can this tool help me to thrive? Sure can. Can it cause me to be super unhealthy? Sure can, right? All that is real and possible. Here's what I put in your notes. I said this tool can give you speed and access to information. What it can't replace is discernment, wisdom, and self-control, right? That those come from a relationship with Christ. Those come from a relationship with Christ. I can grab hold of info in a way that has never been available before. I just want us to realize this, right? This is an incredible time. If you want good, if you want truth and access to truth, if you want to pursue Christ, if you want to pursue health, I want you to know this is an incredible time. There is every translation of the Bible, it's right here, and it will read itself to you if you want it to. Worship music from all, right? You name it. The best teachers all over the planet. A whole theological education for free on YouTube, right? But I got to discern what that good teaching, I got to decide I'm going to give my attention to that. It's an incredible time. If you want to have a better marriage, get healthier, learn real good, get an entire college degree. It's all right here. If I'm looking to use the tool down a specific road. The opposite is also true. I can go down the road of believing lies and get sucked into rabbit holes that will make me radicalized into a direction, right? There's a reality to that. And if I'm not careful, I can end up giving myself to things and to ideas that I don't want to or mean to give myself to. And here's the thing. Often it's hard to even see that it's happening. It's hard to even see that it's happening, right? And I feel this, and it's part of why we're talking about. I experience some of this, right? When I interact with my phone, I'm like, what is this thing doing to me? It's a big deal. And I'm sure probably some of us have experienced it this week. If you have been around a little bit, if you've been around and you kind of heard our challenge a few weeks ago to take a break in some form or fashion from your phone, how many of you guys made some change in your interaction with your device here in the last couple of weeks? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, that's a pretty good group of you, right? The rest of you are just liars, right? I'm just making that up. You may be just here for the first time, realize that, right? But what I'm hearing from people all the time is, man, I'm aware, more and more aware of how I'm interacting with this, how it's affecting me. And here's what I would say, and I know some of you would look, I've heard this comment a couple times along the way too, I don't really have a problem with the phone. I don't really use it that much. And what I would say is maybe go a layer out and apply it more broadly, right? How much news do you take in, right? Are you taking in your news channel of choice or your talk radio of choice way more than you'd want to admit out loud, right? Is that affecting you? Here's a couple questions we might ask ourselves. When I walk away from my phone use, here's where we might get in trouble. When I walk away from my phone use, do I walk away from that use of the phone and feel encouraged and galvanized to go do what God has put me on the planet to do? Or do I walk away from that phone use and I feel worked up and angry and just frustrated, right? When you listen to the news, you walk away galvanized to do it, God, or do you walk away kind of just angry and just mad at the world a little bit, frustrated with the world? When you walk away from your device use, do you walk away and think, you know what, man, I wish my life was like that influencer, and I wish I was on a beach somewhere, and see, I'm so behind. I know I should be more ahead like that, and now I'm way back here. And I've lost perspective of what God has put into my life. When you walk away from that interaction, what do you experience? Is it serving you? Is it helping? Or is it hurting? Or is there some kind of mix? And in my experience, it's definitely been some kind of mix, right? And so I want to be aware of that, and I want to look and say, I want to have discernment, wisdom, and self-control to lean into the parts that help me become what I am designed to become, right? Fight for the health of my heart. I watched this happen even this week. I had a conversation with somebody, and they were really fired up about things that are happening in our world, right? And things that are happening in government or across the world and all this stuff. And they said, man, I'm just so glad that I know. And they started getting really amped up about the whole thing, okay? And I'm sitting there listening to it, taking it all in, and and at some point I thought to myself and kind of dug into it. I'm like, what are you gonna do with all that exactly? Because what you're telling me is you're really fired up about all these things you're mad about, and you've been telling a lot of people. What exactly did that produce? Exactly. Because here's what I see. I see a community of people here that we could use some help, and we could use some resources, and there's some opportunities to serve. That person's in need, and they could use some clothes, and that, right, when we could start another church, or we could just sit around and complain about stuff. And see, what happens is, I don't even know it, but I can get spun off into an oblivion and feel like I'm making an impact when really I'm just consuming information. And guys, that can happen as I stare at somebody's life that I covet, and that can happen with just doing nothing with my time, dismantling actually the purpose that God's put me on the planet for, and we could go on and on. Let's shift for a minute and talk about how this shows up in social media, right? So we're looking at how we search, how I interact with this. Now there's actually a place that when we approach our devices where we can actually show up in there publicly, right? Social media has been a phenomenon that it's been hard for me to understand because there's no rule book for it. What is that thing? What's the platform even for? What do you do with it? What's the right way to use it? Should you post every emotion you've ever had? I don't know. I'm hungry, I should tell 700 people. I don't know. Maybe that's the right way to use it. I have no idea. Is it a platform to preach from? Is it a place to share every idea? I don't know. No one defined the thing. So how do I use it? So the room to get into trouble and use it in a way maybe that's harmful is kind of enormous because I'm not sure we're given a starting point for even how to interact with the thing. So I want to share a few ideas that I think may be helpful when interacting with social media. So specifically, right, when I'm watching what people have commented, I'm interacting with posts, I'm posting myself, here's maybe a verse that would be helpful. Proverbs 18:2, again, wisdom talk. It says, fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. Right, delight in airing their own, I got an on that one, right? You may have experienced some of that, I don't know, right? In airing their own opinions. So here's all he's saying. He's saying, basically the flip side of this, wise people lead with understanding. I want to try to understand this thing. Fools lead with opening their mouth and just saying whatever's on their mind, airing their opinion out there. Here's what I just say. So important, right, that as we interact with, we're representing ourselves publicly on social media. If you're a follower of Jesus, this is really important. When you're interacting publicly, what can happen is because it still doesn't feel like the real world because it's the digital world, it feels like it doesn't count. If I blow somebody up in a comment thread, it doesn't feel as real as if you stood up here and said that in front of like a whole bunch of people at once. Right? Many of us would never feel comfortable to stand on a stage and say anything in front of 200 or 300 people, but buddy, we will blow you up, right? Keyboard warrior. So I want to make sure that before I post, am I being a fool? Is this something that I should actually say out loud? Is this just an opinion? And right here's the next verse we're going to look at. In Ephesians chapter 4, Paul says this, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Or we could say, come through your fingers, right? But only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Don't let any unwholesome talk come through you. And we could say kind of in the same way, I might look and I can use social media, and I can use social media to build other people up, or I can use it to tear other people down. Can social media be used to pray for people, to offer encouragement, to celebrate things in their life, to see the good in others, to follow up in real relationships and check in, to stay in touch? All that's possible. Can it be used as an avenue where I judge others and lurk and gossip and make judgment calls about them, where I literally comment and tear people down in negative ways, where I post things that just stirs the pot? What am I doing with this thing? And here's the reality, right? If there's a fight for my heart, and there's a connection between these things, right? The more I go chase evil, the more likely I am to take that and spew it out publicly in my relationships, on social media, you name it. And there's a fight to grab hold of my heart right here. Right, man, if I just go I'm gonna go grab some information, and I'm gonna go tear people down with it, and vice versa, and feed that. That there's also, we could land over here and say, I'm going to learn some stuff, and I'm going to get built up myself in my relationship with Christ, or in my marriage, or in my friendships, or get healthier, and I'm going to share that with other people. I'm going to build up and be a helpful, understanding human being. I'm going to be a child of God, and there's a fight for my heart in this direction. There's a fight for my heart in this direction, and I've got to decide, where am I going to steer this thing, right? What's going to grow and kind of take precedence? And will I let God's purpose in my life, right, is that my heart looks more and more and more like this? That it's not landing over here where I'm letting parts of my heart get sucked away, siphoned away, or I'm being used to be an agent of destruction in people's lives, but an agent of help and encouragement if I'm going to interact with the device that way, right? And you can apply this more broadly, of course, than a device. It's just the thing that it consumes a big part of our lives. Big deal here, guys. Here's a couple questions that I would just throw out here. Practical stuff that we might grab hold of before posting or commenting, specifically down the social media road. Here's a question you might ask, and you might take a picture or take notes of this. I want to ask the question, is it appropriate? Is it appropriate? This is it feels like a no-brainer, not a no-brainer, okay? Is this appropriate? Would I stand on stage at church and say that in front of this group of people? You're like, well, maybe not, right? Is that appropriate, right? Is that something that I want to do? Here's the next one. Am I reacting? Am I reacting? Here's the challenge that I find with social media, and why we'll talk about this next week, why I use it in a very limited way. It's hard to steward all of the information that we see in a scroll or a thread about people. Because in one scroll, you're going to see this person had a major loss, and that person had a baby, and that person said an insane thing that makes me crazy, and that happened, and this is news, and there's a fire in that city. And you're like, in a normal scenario in life, you're not going to ever have all of this information thrust upon you at one time. That you have to steward that. Does this make sense? So it's easy when you go into social media to become reactionary. You didn't intend when you open that to say that crazy thing back or to jump in and post this insane thing. That wasn't your intent, but now there's a reaction. I don't know, right? It happened. I've done this multiple times where I had full comments written out with my finger on the send button, right? You guys ever do this? You're like, no, I just send that sucker, right? Right? You ever do that? You have it all written out, and you're like, I'm going to tell them. And then you're like, wait a minute. I don't know if I should do this right now. Am I reacting to something? If I waited an hour or a day, would I sound the same? Or would I comment at all? Right? Would I just let that one go? Am I reacting? Here's the last one. Is this something that a wise person would post or comment? Right? Is this something that a wise person would post or comment? If I had wisdom, if I was a person of wisdom, would I do that? Right? And it's fine to joke and have fun as long as it's in the lane, right, of appropriate. But would a wise person say that, do that, post that? It's a real question. And here's just a thing that matters, okay? If you're a follower of Jesus here, right, and I know not everybody in the room is, if you're a follower of Jesus, there's nowhere that you go that you're not a follower of Jesus. That includes the digital world. If you show up in that digital space, I'm at church over here, praise Jesus, and then you're like, you know what? These people, right? That never happened, right? If that's how it's showing up, you need to understand the people that are reading or seeing whatever you are in that digital space, they probably know that you show up over here and make claims about following Jesus, okay? None of us are perfect. That's not the point. The point is you are a child of God. The reason that you're on the planet is not to get lost in distraction. It's not to blow people up or tear people down. God has placed you here in this place and in this time to bring hope. To bring hope and to point people to the person of Jesus Christ. So if I'm doing something that's eroding that purpose, I got to stop and ask the question, wait a minute, is this wise? Is it worth it? Is it worth blowing up my credibility and my influence and a potential to help somebody's eternity be changed? To make sure I made my point? We got to stop and ask the question, right? I'm going to stop and ask the question. Here's the reality. What I go chase and what I go search is gonna come back and affect me. It's gonna come back and feed my heart, right? If I kind of take garbage in, garbage is gonna come out. If I take in good and I take in nutrition and truth, I'm gonna be able to share that out of the overflow of my heart. I'll be able to use that to build other people up. The only person who's going to be able to pay attention to that and make decisions about whatever that looks like is you and me. Me in my life and you in your life. You're the only ones who know. I'm the only one who knows what I'm taking in. Right? I want to look and say, what am I feeding my heart? Is it being fed worthless, empty, or am I grabbing hold of the opportunity to strengthen my heart before God, to grow as a child of God, that my heart can be full of truth and love and kindness and goodness, that I might look, and because that's the case, there's people in my life that are stronger, that are built up, that they might have cycles broken in their lives simply because my heart was full of what's good. You guys, most of that we're never even going to see the full impact of. Right? I feel this. It's been convicting for me. I told you that. I went into this. I do not have this together. I'm learning how to use this tool. I have interests. And those interests can become too big in my life and just like yours. What I've seen here as I've taken my little fast and I'm working at it just like you guys are, is I see what I'm feeding myself that's good growing. And I like it. All right? It's because that's the life that Jesus died to give me. I want more of that. I want more of that. And I don't want to surrender it, because it's the path of least resistance. It's easy. Because it's something easy to run to cope with. Right? Because I want to land in a place that by design, that I'm being notified and I'm being challenged. I've got a friend, here's what he does. He's got a reminder on his phone. And it's called the Big Three. Here at Grace, what we do is we talk about the Big Three: bless others, initiate prayer, get in the Bible, right? Every day. Bless others, initiate prayer, get in the Bible. And he puts a reminder on his phone that stays on his home screen every day until he has done some version of that. He's like, it drives me crazy, right? But he sees it every time he looks at his phone, Big Three. And he's reminded, I got to get in the Bible, I got to pray, I want to be a blessing to other people. And that's using it in a way that is driving him towards this and driving his heart towards a place of health. So you say, Ryan, what do we do with all this? Right? Here's the question. Here's what's beautiful, is Jesus died to give us a new heart. Okay, so don't misunderstand this conversation. It's not like there's good people and evil people. I'll use myself. I needed Jesus to come die for me because my heart was evil. I'm not a good person that just, put some things together and became I needed the Son of God to put skin on, come and suffer and die for me and rise from the dead to offer me new life. That's the gospel. That's available to you and to me. There's nobody who is 100% good. We all have a heart that needs to be made new. When I say yes to Jesus, I am gifted a new heart. And then I have to choose what I feed it, what I put into it. That's the part where you and I come in. I would say to you, if you're not a follower of Jesus, do you want a new heart? Do you want to make a decision to follow him and have that gifted into your life? If you're already a follower of Christ, are you feeding this heart what it was gifted to feed on truth, on healthy relationships, on things that are going to make me look more and more like a follower of Jesus? Can we adjust and move towards that more and more? Just as the band comes out, would you just kind of let that settle in a little bit and ask yourself some questions and determine to move towards the heart that God has gifted you to have? Would you bow your heads, close your eyes with me? Lord, I just want to say thank you today for your great mercy for us. Lord, you know that I fail and we fail in all kinds of ways. And God, we say thank you today that we don't rise or fall based on our performance, but because of what you have done for us, Christ, your sacrifice. And Lord, we want to say thank you for the heart that you've gifted us. And we want that heart to be filled with truth, with your voice, with intentions to help and bring hope to the people in our lives. God, would you just awaken our hearts? Help us to see what is truly worthless and to choose the good. Or empower your people. Help us with this, even now.